Faster than writing to a letter form. More thoughtful than angry clickbait. Able to discuss the world's first superhero in comics, film, TV, and more. It's the Super Maniacs, and we're going to have a super good time. We are super excited. We are recording this the week that Superman 2025 by James Gunn arrives in theaters.
Yeah, and this is the day before me and you are going to go watch it, actually.
Yeah.
As well. And today's the press screening for all press, so I decided not to do that for personal reasons,
Good
as well
man.
as the fact that we wanted to do this ahead of time anyways. So it would have been weird for me to be watching the movie.
Just a little bit, yeah, because we're going to be talking about our hopes, the things we want to see in the movie, our fears, the things we don't want to see in the movie, and also any final predictions we have before we finally do get to sit down and watch it. So I'm curious to get some of your answers to these questions. But yeah, we should dive into that.
I'm very excited. I've been Supermaning up all day.
You know, it's weird to me because I've been so Superman obsessed, you know, like the last few months, just gearing up for the movie, and the comics have been doing some really cool things. And yeah, there's like so much merch everywhere. Like you can't go anywhere, you can't spend money anywhere because like he's without seeing Superman. They're marketing this movie hard. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a fun thing to witness. But like the last few days, I've just been like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to see the movie.
I've never been more ready, but I keep watching Superman shit in the meantime. Like it's been a while since I've gone on this giant kick. I just rewatched all of my adventures with Superman because one, I wanted to watch it, and two, I decided to show it to my girlfriend because she had never seen it before, and she loved it. She loved every minute of it.
I'm really excited to rewatch it and show it to my girlfriend at some point later in the year, I guess. We've been watching a lot of Superman content though. Like she had never we mentioned this before, but she had never seen the Donner movies, so we went through all of those as you and I were discussing them. And we actually, there was a lot of DC movies that she hasn't seen. So I was like, oh, before you realize how good James Gunn's Superman movie is, you need to see how bad some of this other stuff is.
It's true. You really have to understand where we are as a fandom, because for a long time, because with Batman's ratio of good to bad is actually pretty high. His good is much better than his bad, and his bad are real bad. Don't get me wrong, but but you can point to them and you'll be like, that's an Oscar-worthy movie type thing. Where you watch Superman movies and the ratio is just super super off type of thing. Like, and also depending on who you ask, depends on what that ratio is type of thing. Because for me it's like Superman 1 and 2 are like my gold standards, and then after that, like, I kind of like Man of Steel slightly better than the others, and then Superman Returns. But even then, like, that's kind of where the bad starts, like for me. But I've talked to friends who are like, I really like Superman Returns, or I really like Man of Steel, and it's just like, the ratio's been like debated when it comes to Superman compared to Batman or even Spider-Man for that matter, stuff like that.
But I think part of the problem with Superman was those first two Richard Donner movies were so good and so successful, but also just really beloved with a diehard cult following, but also the critics really liked those. And I think they just cast such a large shadow that so much of Superman outside of the comics, especially like outside of animation, but in like live action adaptations, everything has always had to have had some type of connection to the Donner stuff. So I think for a lot of people, they have such a limited view of Superman because they don't know all the countless comic book stories. They just know like, oh yeah, you have, Lex is like this human with green rocks who can beat up Superman, and then sometimes he'll fight like another Kryptonian like Zod, and that's all the Superman stories they know.
Yeah, they've never seen like a good Metallo thing on a movie. And again, we're going all this on movies because Metallo and a lot of these villains have shown up in live action, but only on television. Mm-hmm. This is actually the weirdest thing about Superman compared to everyone else, is I think out of all of the superheroes, Superman has had the most live action versions of him on television out of everyone. And I mean everyone. I mean every superhero like possible. Like even Batman has had has had very little live
Yeah.
action stuff on when it comes to television, which I think is fascinating. Like
Yeah.
Superman has had at least like 4 or 5 shows.
And a big part of that is just because of the George Reeves show in the 50s kind of proved like, oh, it's not that hard to tell, weekly TV episode stories with this character. So it is weird that, yeah, like some of the best Superman media, it has been television. Like Lois and Clark was a pretty big deal for a lot of people. I know, like for you, that was a big foundational
Yeah.
presentation of Superman. Smallville, in fact, our new Superman, David Corns, but he said to him, Tom Welling was his Clark Kent growing up. He would always look forward to watching Smallville after school as a kid.
Nicholas Holt said the same thing to Michael Rosenbaum directly because he was on his podcast
Is
inside of you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
inside of you. He was on this podcast and he's like, "Well, what do you think? What are you gonna do with Lex?" He's like, I've kind of followed your lead, type of thing, and because you're Lex Luthor, you're the guy, type of thing, and it's just like I can't blame them because Smallville was on for like
For
10 years,
10 years, yeah.
and they're about our age, a lot of them. So it's like, yeah, of course, that's kind of what they probably gravitated towards more. Because the only reason I gravitated towards Lois and Clark more is because I watched all those reruns before Smallville ever started. The same with George Reeves stuff whenever that was on TV Land, that kind of thing. Like I watched all of that stuff very early on. It's very interesting. How our generations vary depending on what they were watching at the time, sort of thing.
But it is kind of like every generation does have their own Superman, with this character that is constantly rebooted. I was talking to my girlfriend's mom the other day. We're talking about Christopher Reeve, and she was saying like, "Oh yeah, he was my Superman growing up," and I was like, "Yeah, like I remember being a kid when he had his accident and all of that stuff." So, uh, which is also true of the comics. Like the people reading Superman comics now are reading very different material than say like the fans in the '70s, or like the fans in the 1940s. So
I think that's the funny thing about Superman is that is you can ask any specific age group and they're gonna have a very different answer of what Superman is. And the same with a lot of other characters. But again, this sounds strange, but Superman has had the most vastly different iterations compared to a lot of them. Because once Batman became dark again, it was just dark Batman again, from like what the Bronze Age to like now, kind of thing. Like there wasn't really a lot of comedy in those comics, but when you look at Superman, that shit was all over the place.
that's true. Like you covered like I would almost say like more different genres with Superman. He's a character you can drop him in any situation. You can tell like a World War II story where he's fighting Nazis, or you can tell like a kaiju story where he's fighting a giant monster. He has such a versatility as a storytelling mechanism.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why when they did I think it's the third season of Superman the animated series, that there's so many guest stars during that time frame because all of them work. Because Green Lantern shows up and it's like, okay, of course Superman is going to deal with that. Man from Man from Atlantis, yeah, that sounds like something Superman would deal with. It's like demons and stuff. It's like, yeah, no, that sounds like something Superman would do. Like no matter what it is, yeah, Superman would do it. If
It,
the story was about Superman going to get coffee, it would still work for Superman, type of thing. Like just like imagine that, like just a single issue, him going, I need to get Lois coffee, but there's consistently danger happening, and he just doesn't have time to stop and get coffee no matter what he does. Like he keeps showing up as Clark Kent and being like, okay, I'll have a, and then he hears something, goes, I'll be right back. Whoever go next, type of thing. It's just that for like
yeah.
hours. That would be hysterical.
Yeah, no, like I'm getting ideas just hearing you think about this. Like what if he's trying to get her coffee at like super speed, but while he's doing that, he's like, "Oh no, it looks like Reverse Flash has tied up the Flash and he's trying to like destroy the world or something, and I'm the only one fast enough to deal with that right now. So let me go take care of this on my way to get Lois coffee at like super speed, just like a matter of seconds. Like you could have like this entire adventure and it's only like 5 seconds pass by to everyone else.
It's wonderful. Like that's the thing about Superman. We could say anything for the most part, and it would still make for a Superman story. No matter how weird it is, because John Byrne got real weird with some of the stuff he did. He got borderline like unacceptable weird, but they still became super bad stories, and everybody was fine with it afterward. But like, it's crazy. Oh yeah, that's right. My check. It's the Superman. There's a Superman manga where the entire thing is him going around trying different Japanese foods, and it's incredible.
Well, it is a shame that with all these, how easy it is to tell these radically different stories with the character, that Hollywood studios have just been so frustratingly stubborn in these stories that they are allowing these movies to tell, and
Exactly.
hopefully this new one will break the mold in a lot of ways.
Well, let's get into our thoughts about all that.
Sure. So just start off on like a positive note. What are some of the things that you want to see, or even just I don't know if you have like one big one in particular, like a big want that you really want to see in this movie.
This is gonna sound weird, but I want really big scenes involving the Daily Planet. Like I don't want the Daily Planet to be like kind of like a midpoint. You know what I mean? Like where it's like, oh, he went back to Daily Planet, talked to a couple people, and then he went back out to do whatever it is he's gonna
Sure.
be doing.
Like Superman Returns or Man of
Yeah,
Steel, either one. Like neither one spent much time. Like they showed us The Office and then spent barely any time there.
exactly. I want more scenes that happen the way all four Donner movies, they're not four Donner, all four Christopher Reeve movies do, where there are large scenes that happen to be in the Daily Planet, where he's talking to Lois, he's talking to Jimmy, he's talking to the Chief. But I want the fact that we're gonna get the bigger cast of characters that are there. So we're gonna have Ron Troop, we're gonna have Cat Grant, we're gonna have Steve Lombard, who hasn't really who like who so many of those characters have had different iterations in different ways, and I'm curious to see, especially Ron Troop, because Ron Troop hasn't shown up in most damn near anything, and so I'm very curious. I want Clark to feel like he's part of the office type of thing, like that he is. This isn't just something he does to kill time before he goes and becomes Superman. I want it to feel like he's like, this is my job, and I take this just as seriously as I do anything else there.
I know, like, one of the things I'm most excited about from the trailers and TV spots is just like a really quick shot of Jimmy Olsen and Clark Kent kind of goofing around in the office. And it's like, yeah, I want him to have like that friendship. Like even if Jimmy's not in on the secret, I don't think they're going to go the My Adventures with Superman route with that stuff. But just like him being like Clark Kent's pal. If he can't be Superman's pal, I want him to be like, yeah, like give Clark Kent like that friendship. Make Jimmy his own character, not just like an extension of Clark, but like make him his like this fully realized individual in and of himself.
Exactly. Everybody needs to feel like they're part of the set, and they're part of a team of different people who aren't just like, hey, there's guy number three, because that's kind of how I felt about Man of Steel when Steve Lombard was there, because it's one of the only other times Steve has ever been in anything, and they're just like, yeah, I'm Steve Lombard, I do sports. It's like, cool, what do you do? I just stand there, and then sometimes I yell Perry, because the world's exploding. I'm like, great, that's all we got out of him. Because when the second movie comes out, or when BBS comes out, fucking Perry is like, I want you to do sports, Kent. I'm like, what the fuck is Steve gonna do? Like, you just took away Steve's one thing from him. That doesn't make any sense. Like, the whole thing just, it frustrates me. Like, I need the paper to run correctly. You know what I mean? Like, why is Clark Kent doing sports? Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if Zack Snyder, like, do you know what Steve Lombard's job at the Daily Planet is? Like, I don't know how familiar he is with those characters, but I'm gonna kind of build off of that because like one of the things that I really want to see in this movie is I want Metropolis itself to feel like a real place. I want it to have like an identity as a city, but I don't want it to feel like any like actual place in real life exactly. Like I don't want it to be the Christopher Reeve version where it's like, oh yeah, it's entirely 100% no attempt to hide it. This is New York City, but we're all just going to call it Metropolis.
That's always been my issue with a lot of superhero movies that don't take place in a real world. So when Spider-Man takes place in New York, that's fine. He's supposed to be New York. That's
Right,
that's the
right.
point. But you watch stuff like, the Dark Knight trilogy, or any of the Superman movies you mentioned, or even fucking the newer one, or the Man of Steel and all those. Except like a lot of them are just like, this is clearly just in the city. Like This is clearly Chicago. It's clearly New York. Parts of this are clearly Georgia. That kind of random thing. That's the one thing I've always given both Tim Burton's and Joel Schumacher's Batman a lot of credit for, is that they're so distinctly different cities that you're like, this is Gotham. This isn't Chicago. This isn't New York. This isn't even fucking Delaware type of things. Like this is a whole this place doesn't exist. Like I can't go outside and see gigantic sculptures of like muscle dudes or just like the most gothic thing you've ever seen in your life. That place doesn't exist. Like, and if it does, you clearly took shrooms before you walked outside. Type of thing. And I want Superman's, I want Metropolis, because I've been telling people this for a long time. I want Metropolis to feel like the city of tomorrow. I want to go there and see things I never would see before. I want and it's hard to explain that to somebody because they're just like, "Whoa, you want self-driving cars and stuff?" I'm like, "No, not that necessarily, but I want every building to feel like something that's so high tech almost looking that it doesn't look like any building I would see like in downtown Austin type of thing." If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. But I also want it to have like character. Like I want to get like an idea of like the culture there, the people there. You know, I want to see the Daily Planet staff, but I also want to see like the city like outside of work. Like I'm hoping that Bibbo, I see that in the live chat as well. But you and I have talked about this
The
before,
Bibbo
but
would be
like
great.
Michael Rooker, you know, working with James Gunn, he would be like, let's put like the sailor's cap on him and just shoot him like hanging out by the docks, talking about like how much he loves Superman or something. Like that's all you got to do. It'd be perfect, comic accurate Bibbo.
Yeah, there'd be so many things that you could do with Metropolis. Like have Bibbo and have his bar, have the different. I know there's some photos of the sets and stuff that show like some of the stuff that we're talking about. Like it's like the Big Belly Burger, of course. It's a staple of all of DC stuff nowadays. Same with there's like these different there's these merchandise stores full of Superman stuff. If I remember correctly from the set, I think there was like a donut shop or something that had a specific Metropolis name or something. Like there was some stuff that we saw where James Gunn is legitimately trying to be like, this is the city, which I give him a lot of credit for doing.
Well, you know, like in the trailer where Lois is recording the interview with Superman, she has the Lord Tech audio recorder. It was like manufactured
Yeah,
by Max Lord's company. So I like that inclusion of like these other companies that don't exist, like the other brands, like Big Belly Burger, or like I want to see like a billboard for Soder,
oh god, I would love a
like
billboard for soda. I
like that
still
type
say
of stuff.
soda for soda stuff every now and then.
And you know, like James Gunn created like his own punk rock band. Like he has like this fictional band that's like
That's right. Yeah,
Clark has the poster in his room, and it's gonna show up in some other stuff too, I guess.
I already
So
forgot what it was called. Like, was we pointed it out when we watched the trailer the
yeah,
first time, and
yeah.
and it turns out you also can see it, I think, in Creature Commandos as well. Like somebody has a shirt that says the same thing,
Right, or it
something
was
like
like in
that.
the Peacemaker season 2 trailer, or somewhere else. It's definitely like a recurring thing. So
Yeah, he wants it to show that this world, all of the worlds are connected, and that's a funny way of doing it, but it's a quick way of doing it without having to do too many things.
but that, to me, like that's the thing that makes DC a little different than Marvel. Like they're obviously both in kind of like a heightened reality that's very different from our real world. But I feel like even more so with DC, it should be like a little bit more fantasy than Marvel. Like the people that are celebrities in real life, I feel like in the Marvel universe it'd be like the same people. In the DC universe, it would be different people. You know, instead of telling a story about like I don't know who's like a famous celebrity, but
Yeah, I have a hard time believing the Kardashians are very interesting
right.
in the DC
But
universe
there would be
type
something.
of thing.
There would be like an equivalent of them. There would be like a different like an analog of the Kardashians would
Like the
totally exist.
edges, keeping up with the edges,
Maybe, or even
something
like
something insane shit like that.
I mean, you could do like an interesting story about Lex's family if you brought in like Lionel from Smallville and then
That would be interesting.
have his sister around, and you could expand some stuff on the Luthor family.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that's the thing about the DC universe is that, like you said, is like there isn't just like you don't just watch it and then you're like, hey, it's Matthew McConaughey, he exists in this world type of thing, or it's like, or hey, like there's fucking Ryan Reynolds type of thing. It's like, no, we want like I want to be able to look at a I want to be able to watch the show and be like, hey, that's like that's the thing that I always thought was weird about Marvel is that they didn't lean towards some of that stuff, like Wonder Man being an actor. Like I feel like that should have been more of like something that they really played with, like the fake actors and stuff. But they just don't, which is a shame. And DC has plenty of like like have Victor Stone or have him just be on a football team somewhere in the background, and have like other fake football guys there as well. Like make everything feel even that much more lived in.
Uh, Joel in the live audience looked it up, but it's the Mighty Crabjoys as the
Uh,
fake band.
I knew it
So,
involved seafood, but I couldn't remember if it was crab related or lobster related.
well, let me also ask you this. You're talking about fleshing out the Daily Planet staff and having those, Metropolis-based support characters come through in this movie. How do you feel about like the Smallville supporting cast of characters? That's something that I would like to see. Is we know we're getting Jonathan and Martha, but I'm wondering if maybe if they're just mentioned. I know it's only a 2-hour movie; they're not gonna have time to show every Superman supporting character ever, but if they're at least mentioned, I would like to hear about Pete Ross or Lana Lang or anyone else from the Smallville side of Clark's life.
I would love for Pete Ross to really be used in the forefront again, because the thing about Pete is that every show has forgotten about Pete. Like Pete just sort of disappeared one day from every adaptation. Like the second Smallville, the actor for Smallville left, everyone's like, I guess Pete Ross is done. No one cares about Pete
Yeah.
Ross anymore.
No, that
So
was the
no
show
show
that
ever
put him
brings
on
him
the
up.
map. Like no one cared about Pete Ross really until that show kind of reignited an awareness of the character. And the comics started using him more for a little. Do you remember that? Like he
Yeah,
used
he
to.
became the president towards the
Yeah,
end of
yeah.
his
He
thing.
he was Lex's vice president and then became president.
And then he
Like
got arrested for being framed for being a supervillain and stuff like insane shit like that. He found out that Clark was Superman eventually. Like there was a whole thing. Like Pete was a very important character in the 2000s basically, and then one day Pete just fucking disappeared.
it
The
was when
thing. I don't even think I've seen him in a comic in a long time.
I was about to say, like, I know you're more caught up on the recent comics than I am, but I have not heard of them using Pete in a long ass time, like
I
since he
think
was
American
president.
Alien was the last time I saw him, and that was that Max Landis miniseries. That was the last time I've seen Pete. And then before that, the last time we ever saw Pete was in Man of Steel.
Yeah, yeah, that is
And
true.
he has like,
He is in
and
Man
he's
of
just an
Steel.
asshole to him for like most of it.
Yeah,
And then after that, he works at IHOP. Man
yeah,
could have been president. Now he works for IHOP.
yeah. What a downgrade. I mean, I've not to dismiss any like manager at IHOP. Someone has to do that job, but yeah, definitely a step down from commander in chief.
Like
Um,
yeah, and Lana gets used in everything. Like that doesn't mean I hate Lana. It's just that I want if you use Lana, don't make her too important. You know what I mean? Like that's my problem with a lot of other stuff. Is Lana is so important in other adaptations consistently, especially since Smallville happened. Like you'll watch when we watched like Superman and Lois, it's just like I get it, Lois, or I get it, Lana. Your husband's a dick sometimes. Like I kind of don't want to deal with you right now, Lana. We're trying to deal with Bizarro. I don't have time for your bullshit type
I
of thing.
would like a Lana Lang who actually has red hair.
That would be nice. It's been a very long time since we've had a redheaded
Annette
Lana
O'Toole
Lang.
was like the one and only.
Yeah, and I don't remember what Lana looked like in Lois and Clark because she shows up for a single episode.
Well, what's one of the things that you're scared about this movie might do that you hope they avoid? What's the thing that you don't want to see in this?
2 words: real estate. I don't
Nice.
want Lex to capture Superman and be like, "That's right, Superman. This is all a plan for my Lex condos." Because fuck you. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah. I hope they give us something good with Lex. I don't think I'm alone in saying I was not thrilled with how Zack Snyder approached the character. Um,
Zach had a decent idea with him, which is the idea that he was obsessed with the fact that like he was obsessed with the idea of someone with all that power being good. The idea that like if God's all powerful, he can't be all good, and if he's all good, he can't be all powerful or some shit was the idea, which was like an interesting idea. But the problem is it was more of like a weird religious angle when it came to like his obsession with him. Whereas I like the idea more of what we're seeing so far, which is that he's like, I don't care that he's like, I care that he's all powerful and he's the most powerful being on the planet, but more because I'm not the most powerful being on the planet and everyone's paying attention to him and not me. Like I'm a big fan of seeing that because every trailer has that where he's just like Superman just for some reason is the talk of everybody. Like everybody won't stop talking about this guy, and I don't understand it. Fuck this guy. He's the most powerful being on this planet, and at any moment the man could turn on us. Is like, but this last part feels like an excuse that he's using when people ask him about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the idea that I think this might have been All Star Superman that brought this up, but the idea that like Lex could, he could be like finding cures for cancer and stuff like that with his intellect, but he's so obsessed with bringing down Superman that instead he's focusing all on that rivalry. That's largely kind of, he imagines this rivalry. Like Superman probably like doesn't really give that much of a shit about Lex, but to him it's just like he wakes up in the morning, the first thing he thinks about is like, oh, I hate Superman, I gotta bring him down.
Yeah, there's a great line. I think it's all. I think of this from All Star Superman, where he's like, "I could have saved the world if it wasn't for you." I'm like, "You could have saved the world a long time ago if
Yeah.
you actually cared." Like, there's so many moments where Clark is just like, you could have made me look like an idiot by saving everyone because you're that smart and you just didn't do it. Like everyone would have praised you and I would have been perfectly fine with that.
But see, here's a perfect example of what we were just talking about, in that like the larger mainstream audience is so unaware of the Superman stories outside of the existing movies, because like DC Comics, not just like DC Comics, like the video games, the cartoons, going back to like Super Friends, going to like DC Universe online, like you can do such cool stuff with Lex. He's not just a great Superman villain, but he's a great DC Universe villain. He's like one of like their cornerstone characters as far as like the villain side of things. He's arguably, one of the most important, maybe the most important, and the movies never really show that. They just show like the guy with like real estate schemes, like you're saying. So I really think this Nicholas Hoult depiction of the character is an opportunity to course correct it and tell stories with like this Lex that has all the potentials of the comic book character. I want like the mad scientist. They've described Nicholas Holtz as Lex as like he has sorcery level abilities through his science, and that sounds really cool.
Yeah, Lex has always been Lex has been the way Doctor Doom has been in the Marvel universe, where it's just like, sure, there's a very specific set of people who fight him, but he's everyone's villain. Like, like if Lex Luthor showed up in a Wonder Woman comic, you wouldn't bat an eyelash. You would be like, of course Lex Luthor's there to fuck with a Wonder Woman. If Lex Luthor showed up in a Batman comic, which he has done
Yeah.
multiple times without Superman, you would still be like, no, that makes sense. Lex Luthor fucking is there to fuck up his day. Lex Luthor showed up in a Flash comic, you would have the same thought process. If Lex Luthor showed up in a Booster Gold comic, you would still have the exact same thought process. Like you would just like Lex Luthor fucking hates everyone, and it works because again, Lex is the same as Superman. He's everybody's villain. If it's the same way if Superman showed up in any comic fighting anybody, it works. Like that's the major difference between Superman and Lex than say Batman and the Joker or Flash and the Reverse Flash or any of those people, because sure they show up in other stuff, but at the end of the day usually they have to call somebody to help them with it. So if it's like Reverse Flash, like good examples of the way the CW handled the Reverse Flash. Sure, the Reverse Flash showed up in other stuff, but every now and then somebody would be like, "Well, we got to call the Flash to help us," or something like they would call other heroes to help them, but because they weren't just like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it didn't feel like that was just their story, if that makes sense. Whereas Lex can show up in anybody's story and it still feels like he's challenging that person. Like they don't always have to call on Superman. type of thing to stop Lex. All they have to do is be just as ahead. They just have to think the way Lex does, which is that I am almighty, I'm all powerful, and you're all stupider than me. So it's easier. It's easy to fuck with his ego, which is why it works in a lot of different stories.
Yeah, that's his kryptonite. That's his biggest weakness is his overconfidence.
Yeah, and you can't do that with the Joker. You can't throw Joker in the middle of a Flash story. Like you'd be like, well, Flash is just gonna fucking beat his ass in like 5 seconds. And but if you throw Lex Luthor in a Flash story, you're like, oh god, like what is Flash? What is Lex gonna do to fuck up his day? That Flash has no idea what to do at first, type of thing, and it all works. And that's what we need from Lex. Batman v Superman, or not Batman v Superman. The end of Joss Whedon's Justice League seemed to try to hint at the idea they wanted to course correct Lex into a Legion of Doom, but we never got anywhere with that.
The Lex that we see in that post credit scene, he's closer to like this Nicholas Hoult version of the character than what was in BVS. So,
Yeah, he's wearing a whole suit. Of course he's bald because he gets bald at the end of BVS, but he looks like a legit businessman. Whereas when you saw him in BVS, he looked like a guy I worked with at tech type of thing,
yeah,
which is I get
they
was
were
the
going
point.
like
But
Silicon Valley tech bro. Like
I kind of get is the point, but the problem is that the way he acts, because this is the other thing I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of him being too silly, because that's the problem. That's the problem BVS has. He's very on the nose silly. Like there's a scene where he's force feeding a Jolly Rancher to a senator,
yeah,
kind of thing, and then
little weird.
and he's doing all these like little silly things, the way he talks and like the little mannerism that he does. That's like borderline the Riddler type of thing. And then you have Gene Hackman at times is also very comedic at ways. And then there's one of my great examples of a Lex Luthor that was too silly for its own good. It's an animated movie actually. Did you ever watch Superman Brainiac Attacks?
Mm-hmm.
That Lex Luthor is a goddamn comedian. It's like whoever wrote that was like,
Oh,
I've never seen Superman the animated series in my entire life.
Remind me, that one, did they not have Clancy Brown? They had to get someone else to do the voice?
They did not have Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is that movie clearly feels like it's supposed to be a sequel to stuff in Superman the animated series up until a point, because Brainiac acts nothing like he does in that cartoon. The Phantom Zone is nothing like it is in the cartoon. Lex is nothing like he's in that cartoon. But Jimmy's older. Mercy is there. Everyone else is voiced by everyone else. But
it was Powers Booth does the voice of Lex in that.
That's right.
But he played Gorilla Grodd in Justice League.
Yes, and it was very strange that whoever wrote that movie just didn't like it. It just feels like a weird spin-off of a show that doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because nobody acts like that in the regular show, but he looks just the way Clancy Brown does. Clancy Brown's Lex Luthor does, but acts nothing like him. It's fucking weird, and that worries me. I'm worried, and the way Nicholas Hoult has talked about it, the way he acted in that novel that I read, that's why I'm not too worried about that, because I'm expecting some silliness. Don't get me wrong, it's James Gunn after all, but I don't expect him to be like fucking freakazoid popping up being like, why wazzle Superman? Like, I'm not expecting some fucking weird BVS shit that he did. So I'm a lot more hopeful about that.
Yeah,
than before.
I feel pretty good about the Lex we're gonna get. One of the things that I'm worried about that I don't want to see is I don't know how much Krypton we're gonna get in this movie. It sounds like they're intentionally trying to not rehash too much of the origin stuff. So we're not going to see like a little baby Kal-El and a rocket leave Krypton, but whatever presence Krypton has in the movie, I hope that we avoid the kind of the cold, heartless Krypton, how it's been often depicted as this very cold and joyless place. And I don't like that. I want it to be a place that like our own world is flawed, but also has its beauty and potential. And it's sad that Krypton came to an end. I want a Superman who grieves that loss of not just his parents, but also his entire world, his culture, all of his heritage. Like, I want it to be something like, it would have been kind of cool to get to grow up there, and I'm sad that I will never get those experiences.
Yeah, I want the Krypton that every a lot of the shows and a lot of the cartoons and everything seems says out loud that Krypton was the pinnacle of advancement, the pinnacle of everything, the pinnacle of art, pinnacle of culture, pinnacle of sciences, the pinnacle, like the utopia that we, like the way, the way 2015 was in Back to the Future, where it's this advanced version of what we already know type of thing. Like it's like you can look at it as a glimpse, like you could look at Krypton as the idea of like what if everyone worked together in a way that we saw a glimpse of what we could possibly get to, in a way that, like you said, I wish I could like grow up in that place type of thing, like being able to do all the things that is interesting about Krypton. But there's so many versions of Krypton where you see it, especially in live action media, where you're like, well, this is just Antarctica with extra steps type of thing. Like I want to be like I want to be able to, like the way the Silver Age treats Krypton type of thing, where it's just a bunch of people living their lives where they just happen to have. You want to actually want to know a good way of putting it? The way the Jetsons was.
Yeah. No,
Like the Jetsons was
I like that.
like they were all still normal people. Like the majority of them are all normal people. Like the point of Jor-El is that he's supposed to be the most intelligent person on the planet. So it makes sense that he would do all the things that involves, making a spaceship, telling everybody the world's going to end. But the average Joe who lived on there was just fucking George Jetson going to work, and they're flying spaceships or having the robot maids. They got that type of thing. Like the kind of place that you're like, I get why people got very complacent and not thinking about Krypton exploding, but also that's what makes it so much more tragic that Krypton explodes, is that people just didn't see it coming. You know what I mean?
It's funny that I find Jor-El a more and more relatable character as time goes on, because it's something that they've done a really good job in the comics recently, like in Absolute Superman. But like this guy who's like screaming at everyone else, like, "Hey, it's gonna be the end of the world if we don't cut this shit out," and just watching the climate change, and like we're recording this. We both live in the Austin, Texas area. Not too far from where we recently had the flooding. I think it was like over 90 people confirmed dead right now, and it's like yeah, like these things are just gonna get worse and worse, y'all, until like we got to listen to Jor-El at some point. We
What's
have
the
to.
thing? If Jor-El showed up, and I mean like a real, I don't mean like Jor-El himself, but like somebody who was like, look, the planet's gonna explode in like 3 months, type of thing. Like just like, and started yelling that at the top of his lungs, with as much evidence as he possibly could. Because that's the thing about Jor-El that a lot of people forget, is that Jor-El didn't just walk into a room and going, "We're all gonna die," type of thing. He's like, okay, it's like, here's the idea. I was like, here's the deal. I've been doing studies for like a year. Like I have been looking at all the data. I've been looking at everything else. I've been digging so hard because I want to be wrong so badly that I have done every possible test I can do, but every test comes out the same. We are all fucked, type of thing. And the problem is that like I can see why nobody would want to listen to that guy right now, but with Krypton, it's like you guys are just so arrogant about this type of thing, that you have the means to escape if you just listen to the guy like a month ahead of time. Like you could probably get out like a large group of people. Whereas if that happened now, we would just be fucked. It would just be like, because Elon Musk couldn't even get out. His rocket would explode 5 seconds into launching, type of thing. So it's like, yeah, the whole world would just be fucked at that point. But yeah, like you said, I understand Jarrell, unfortunately, way better now than I ever did as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, it's sad. The older I get, the more relatable Jor-El of Krypton becomes. Um, uh, I guess while we're on a dour note, any other fears you have for this movie? Any other things that you're hoping that they avoid?
This is one that I have been talking with a friend about, which is a fair, which is his fear specifically, but it's a fear that I understand, and I'm sure the audience understands this as well. Is that people are worried about the amount of other characters are in this movie, and they're worried they're gonna overshadow a lot of the movie. And by that I mean like that Superman's going to feel like a second fiddle to his own film, which is a fair thing to be worried about. It's the way people it's the way things happen with Captain America's Civil War, where Captain America's in the movie, but he just happens to be kind of taking place in an Avenger storyline type of thing. And then the same with BVS. It's called Batman v Superman, but Superman has what, like 10 lines in the entire movie type of thing. Like that, like I get why people are worried, and it is a genuine fear of mine as well. I just happen to have a little more faith in James Gunn because he's really good with ensembles.
Yeah.
But
No, I
I
totally
absolutely
agree with
understand
that.
it.
But yeah, it's definitely a widespread criticism that it's something that I had on my list because I know that is going to be a concern, and it's something that so many people are worried about because they see these trailers and they're like, wow, there's so many superheroes. I'm not sure who a lot of these people are. Like, I think that might be Hot Girl from the Justice League cartoon, but I'm not sure which Green Lantern Nathan Fillion's supposed to be, and I'm not sure who this Mr. Terrific guy is, and whatever their concerns are, and they're like, to them, they're looking at this movie as like, oh, so not only is this movie going to introduce me to like this new version of Superman, but also all these other characters I'm going to have to learn about that I don't currently like know anything or care about. I think that's kind of like where that big concern slash criticism is coming from. But I like Gunn's response to that when he said the movie Oppenheimer has 3 times as many speaking parts as our movie has, and people were able to keep up with all those characters in Oppenheimer. So, and it was still like a movie about Oppenheimer despite having this big ensemble. So
Yeah,
I
that's the
like that
thing.
response.
It's that's the reason I'm not worried about it myself, is because James understands what he's doing. Like you said, like there's millions of characters in Oppenheimer. There's millions of characters in pretty much everything some of these guys do, and so I'm very excited to make sure. I'm very excited to see how he balances everyone out, because we know some of them are going to be heavily important to the plot. Some of them are going to be possibly only somewhat important to the plot, but we also know that the amount of villains that we have as well, we don't know anything about them still. We're a day away from watching this movie. I don't know what's going on with Ultraman. I don't know what's going on with the engineer,
Yeah,
and
I
I
love how
have a
little we know.
vague idea of what Lex is up to.
Well, I want to ask you about your predictions too. I want to get into predictions in a moment, but just to build off of what we were talking about the fear of too many characters and possibly overshadowing Superman. I think you brought up a good example with Captain America: Civil War being an example of, regardless how you might feel about that movie, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it is definitely an Avengers movie, not a Captain America movie. You know, uh,
Yeah,
but if you look at Captain America Winter Soldier, on the other hand, that is clearly Steve's movie. Like the beginning and end of that movie, like Steve is in very different places. You follow him on this journey from his point of view, and he goes through a big arc, but it is still packed with a lot of other Marvel characters. Black Widow is in there, a lot of Shield people are in there. It reintroduces Bucky as the Winter Soldier, and so you get like this new Winter Soldier concept thrown at the audience. It introduced Falcon. It brought Falcon into the MCU. So I think that Winter Soldier is a good example on how to do it right, and that's what I'm hoping that at the end of the day, this will be a Superman. Yeah, sure, it co-starred a lot of other DC superheroes, but like Winter Soldier was a Captain America story, this is a Superman story.
yeah, that's pretty much how I feel like what he's going to end up doing with this, and because he's good at that.
Like any movie is going to have like a lot of support characters, and like in the past I feel like a lot of these adaptations, the movies, they would just create new characters. They'd be like, okay, we'll just have, we'll just create like a friend for Clark to explain this with, or like we'll just create like this other character to, for like the scene with the dog with Crypto or whatever. They just make all this stuff up. Whereas if it was a comic, they'd be like, oh no, they would just like pull all these other existing comic book characters and use them. So I like that the movie is taking kind of that comic book approach. Gunn has also gone on record and said this, but like, talk to anyone who reads comics. Like when you picked up your first comic, whatever it was, you probably saw like 10 other superheroes in there along with the title character, like
Yeah, like some of the first comic books I ever read, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And it was like in the middle of a story, or it was the start of a story that I didn't
Yeah.
find out how it ended for like 20 years. Because I didn't grow up with the comic book shop, so I couldn't keep up with some of them. One of my okay, this is a great example of it. One of the first Spider-Man comics I ever read, it was a single issue. I found out the number of it, but I already forgot what it was. But it was a Spider-Man comic that I read where the ending is that he ends up in an insane asylum and somebody takes off his mask and he's just like, ah, but then it's a white guy with a mustache and a goatee. And I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. That's how that issue ended. I didn't find out what happened for like 20 years because again, I
For
didn't have a comic book
years.
shop. I had to find it. I had to figure out what had happened, or I had to figure out what the story was based on my random recollection of something I read in the middle of a Kmart. This is how
Mm.
long ago this was. It was at Kmart when I found this thing. So it's like, yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I'm so lucky. My first Spider-Man comic ever was Spectacular Spider-Man number 200, which was also like kind of the end of a story arc, but it had
but
some
but
really cool Sal Buscema art, and it was a cool DeMatteis
that
story.
story is fantastic. I have that one somewhere, and I'm waiting for the they're coming up with an omnibus finally of all that stuff for J.M. DeMatteis.
About
But
damn time.
yeah, it's supposed to come out pretty soon. Actually, I forgot when. But if you guys keep an eye out for that, if you guys are big Spider-Man fans.
But another early comic book of mine, my first Superman comic, a lot of people around our age are going to have the same story, but the death of Superman. I didn't know who the hell Booster Gold was when I read that. I
I
didn't know
remember
who the hell
them
Bloodwing
saying,
was.
"This is the Justice League." I'm like, who are any of these people?
Yeah.
This is the Justice League. Like, where's Batman? And like, because our thought process wasn't even like the DCAU yet. It was like the Super Friends. Like,
Right.
even fucking Apache Chief is more well known than Ice was to anybody in the general public, type of thing, and he doesn't exist in anything. Like, god damn, it's fascinating to read the death of Superman and not like prior to like the internet existing because you couldn't just look it up.
Well, before we go into our predictions, just any other big wants that you really want to see in this movie?
Big wants is a tricky one. I desperately, desperately want great scenes involving the Kents, and I know we're gonna get them. That's the thing that makes me happy because I have spent so long watching adaptation after adaptation movie wise where Pa Kent has been dead for like 10 years. I am so sick of Paul Kent dying. Like, I want Clark to have both of his parents, even if it's for this one movie. I want the scene of him talking to Pa and Ma at a dinner table or something, the way I grew up watching Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman,
Yeah,
and the
I'm
way Superman the animated series was. I need that in live action so people can get off my back involving Paul Kent dying. We don't need any tornadoes showing up. We don't need any heart attacks. We don't need him like just fucking randomly falling on his neck like some injustice bullshit. Like that's something else entirely. But I want Paul Kent to be part of Clark's life for a while. If he happens to die later on, sure, fine, whatever. But I want at least one movie where Paul Kent gets to have a heart to heart with Clark.
well, we've never had that in a movie. Now
Nope,
that you mention it,
not once. He's
like,
he's he dies at the beginning of Superman the movie. He's dead through all of the Reeves films. Superman Returns is part of that timeline.
mhm.
Man of Steel, he dies because of a tornado, but he's never once in any of those movies talked to Clark after he's become Superman. There's not a single one of in any of those. You can even count Smallville as him talking to him after he became Superman because he keeps seeing his dead ghost dad everywhere.
Well, I mean, that's how the show ended, was with like dead ghost dad talking to Tom Welling as Superman. So.
Exactly. Like he's a very important figure in Clark's life, and Smallville did a great job. Honestly, Smallville did the best job, in my opinion, at breaking my heart when he died. Because that Paul Kent is like fucking A plus Paul Kent.
But that was the Pa Kent that you got to spend the most time with. Like even I know that he's like a big part of Lois and Clark, but he's not like a key character in every episode like he is in Smallville until he's not. So when he dies in that show, you really feel his absence after that.
Yeah, and it's way more annoying that they had 5 more seasons after that.
But yeah, I understand the temptation for writers to kill him off because it is a way to give Clark here's a super relatable tragic thing that like they say in the movie, even with all those powers, there's nothing he can do about it, and then you can have Martha alive to still give him like a parent to talk to or whatever. But I agree with you. It's like no, we need to see that Jonathan Clark relationship like while he has a career as Superman. It's one of the greatest gifts that John Byrne gave us. I have some issues with John Byrne's reboot of Superman that in recent years people have pointed out a lot of problematic stuff. How he kind of told a story about like a Clark who wanted to distance himself from his immigrant past and really like assimilate into like the melting pot culture. There's a lot of problems with that, but I'll say this, like one of the best things that Byrne gave us was bringing the Kents back to life and having them be a part of his life all through the 90s. That was something they did a lot with in Superman the animated series, in the Lois and Clark show. But yeah, and what we've actually returned to in the comics recently, and what I want to see in this movie is a Superman that when he's having a hard time, he can fly over to Smallville, sit down at the kitchen table, and have a cup of coffee and talk about it with Mom and Pa.
That's great. One of my favorite scenes to this day in any Superman thing is I think it's like the third or fourth episode of Lois and Clark. He's on the phone with his mom trying to wash his suit, and she's like giving him tips on how to do it. And she's just like, "Well, what kind of stain is it?" He's like, "I don't know. It's a bomb stain." It's just such a sweet moment where he's just like, "I don't know how to like look, Mom. I'm happy that you're trying to help me, but like I don't know how to fix this."
So I remember in my 20s one time I like called my mom. I was like, "Can you tell me how to iron a shirt? I have a job interview tomorrow and I don't know how to iron my own shirt."
Yeah, I called my mom
like
once to be like, how does a washing machine work?
Yeah.
What's too much? I think is what I said one time. And it's great. That's what I want I want relatable Superman stuff again.
Yeah, like there's a lot of easy ways to make this character relatable for people who think it's hard to do. Uh, Basic Kerr in the live audience is asking, how do we feel about or what do we want for the Lois and Clark romance? So that was the last thing I had on my list that I wanted to bring up for things I really want in this movie. Is I need to love the Clois relationship as back in the Smallville shipper days, we would call it Clois online, but like the Clark / Lois. But yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite romantic relationships in all of fiction. I always like hold them up as an example of how the comics have written Clark and Lois over the last 25 years. Is just they've been consistently depicted as a really strong romance, really strong partnership. They can solve problems together. They can give each other space when they need to. They always have each other's backs. I guess they tried to undo it a little bit in the New 52, but that didn't stick because people like it so much. People connect to it so much.
Yeah, it's impossible, and I'm so glad that DC editorial realized that.
But it's something the movies have never really been able to show. I think the TV has done it.
TV has done it multiple times for years. Since Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, every single Superman and Lois that I've seen from then on has some of the greatest chemistry I've ever seen in my life. But then you watch movie Superman and Lois,
yeah,
and then you're just like him and Brandon Routh and Kate Bosworth, nothing. Fucking Henry Cavill and Amy Adams. There's something there for like a hot second, but then after that, it's negative charisma somehow. And you're just sitting there going like, why should I care about Clark and Lois in these movies? Because especially with the way the Reeves films do it, the Reeves films and extension Superman Returns do it, is Lois doesn't give a shit about Clark when it comes to that way. She has no romantic feelings towards Clark at all in any of that stuff. So there's no reason to get into the Clark and Lois side of that. It's only the Superman and Lois side of it. And even then, it's, Superman gives up on it pretty easily. Once Superman 2 happens, he's like, well, alien people tell me I shouldn't be with you. It's like, no, that's stupid. What is wrong with you? You never once
Huh.
thought about doing both? That doesn't make any sense. And then, Man of Steel, she falls in love with Clark, but like, who is Clark really in that series? Like, we get a glimpse of who Clark is, but once Zod happens, that exploration is done. Like, it's all Superman stuff from then on. And then in BVS, neither of them feel like they want to be there. It's like, what is happening here? Like, until the
And
very end, where he's like, "You're my world." It's like, I guess, like, I didn't see that from either of you.
like the scene in BVS when he crawls in the bathtub with her, like it's supposed to be, I guess, like romantic and sweet, but it just comes off as weird.
It's weird because she's depressed and he looks depressed. So him like getting in there looks almost like they both want to murder
Yeah,
suicide each
are
other.
y'all gonna like drown yourselves in the tub? Like, how romantic?
Like he doesn't. It's just weird. Like in the extended edition or the ultimate cut, it gives us a little more Clark, but even then, he still just seems depressed through the whole thing. It just frustrates me. It frustrates me how much the movies don't seem to understand that Lois and Clark needs to be Lois and Clark, not Lois and Kal-El, not Lois and Superman.
My friend Rachel in the live audience is saying, yeah, Lois needs to also love Clark, and yeah, that's something that
Exactly.
like Man of Steel, like there kind of is no Clark persona. It's just kind of like Superman, and then here's Superman in a flannel shirt when he's larping as a reporter, I guess, because he realized he needed a job at the end of the movie. Uh,
Yeah, the only time you get like I said, the smallest glimpse of Clark in BVS, one is in the Ultimate Edition when he's going around interviewing a bunch of people, and the other is when he's standing up to Perry when he's just like, "I want to do the story on the Batman." It's like, I feel like this is something that's interesting to do, and it's the only time you ever get a sense that Clark takes his job seriously in some way instead of just like you said being a guy who just happens to need a job at the end of the movie type of thing.
yeah, he's like, oh, rent is gonna be really expensive in Metropolis, but I wanna move to the city where the lady I like lives. I guess I'm gonna get a job where she works.
It's nepotism. No, it's I know she didn't like it's I know the ending movie shows that she didn't like give him any references, but at the end of the day, how the hell did Clark get that job?
Well, let's transition into our predictions for the movie because this is something that I want to ask you about. I don't know if this has maybe been established somewhere or not, but like we know that in the movie they're Lois and Clark they've been in a relationship for a while. I think someone's mentioned it's been like 6 months or so. So we're assuming that like by the start of the movie, Lois is going to know that Clark is Superman. Like we're not gonna see that conversation, or do you think that's something that they will show in the movie, like him telling her, like her finding out for the first time?
My predictions is that the beginning of that movie is going to be him kind of telling her, or maybe her finding out.
Okay.
Like I have a feeling that like because the thing about the movie that I've gotten from a lot of the trailers is she's constantly finding out new things about Clark as in each trailer. Because there's the trailer where it's like them and her. I assume it was her apartment, right? The one that we decided was her apartment because it felt more lived in.
Right, yeah.
I feel like maybe that's a scene where she maybe either figures it out or maybe he just tells her, kind of thing, and then she gets to meet his parents because of some stuff that happens with Kryptonite. She finds out about the dog because there's that part in the trailer where she's like, "You have a dog," type of thing. Like it seems like she just found out, or she finds out in that movie, because there's no reason for her to not to know all these things if she already knew that Clark was Superman. You know what I mean?
The I think that's possible. I see Macy at Kerr in the audience is saying it'd be cool if the movie started with some Indiana Jones style opening adventure that would end with him telling her. And I definitely could see the movie starting like in media res is what you call that, right? Like when you open in like the middle of a
Yeah.
story, in the middle of an adventure. So I think that when he gets punched by I assume Ultraman and then falls down to the snow and he's all like bloodied up and beat up and he needs crypto to bring him to the fortress to regenerate. I was thinking that might be the way that the movie opens. You know, Gunn has talked about how he wants to show like a vulnerable Superman, like a Superman that is beatable. That'd be a way to do that. But yeah, I think that if Lois doesn't know, then she's gonna find out like very very early in the movie. I kind of
Yeah.
want her to already know if like they've been in a relationship for 6 months. Like I kind of feel I kind of have a problem with all these depictions of Superman. I guess of like a lot of superheroes in general, where like they keep the secret identity like while they're in a relationship with someone. It's like at a certain point, like you got to trust that person. You know, like you're almost it's almost like you're being dishonest to them if you keep hiding that side of yourself. Like
Well, it's one of the things I liked about the two Death of Superman animated films, Superman Doomsday and The Death of Superman, is the fact that Clark has been dating Lois for a while in these versions, and but both of them do it from the opposite side. Superman Doomsday does it from that Superman's been dating Lois this whole time, but has not told her that he's Clark Kent. And then in Death of Superman, he's been dating her as Clark this whole time, but has not told her that he's Superman this whole time.
right.
And the fact that and the fact that he seems to just be worried, what if she doesn't accept what if she doesn't accept who I am? Two, am I ready to put her in that danger type of thing? It's one of those things I've always that a lot of things don't a lot of movies especially don't feel like they explore it that deeply. And so that's what I found especially because in Death of Superman, like Ma and Pa show up to visit Clark, and she's finding out all these things about Clark, but she's like, I feel like you're hiding something from me because
Mm-hmm.
you didn't even want me to meet them, type of thing. And then in Superman Doomsday, it's just like, why won't you tell me more about who you are? And he's just, well, like who knows what'll happen, type of thing. I've always appreciated that fact. I've always appreciated that fact of some secret identities. But what I always find interesting about Clark and Lois is that he doesn't give up on it. He just is just worried about when he should do it. Because when you watch the Sam Raimi films, Peter just immediately goes, "I'm Spider-Man. I can't bang anybody." Like just to me, it's literally his first
Yeah.
thought. Type of
Spider-Man will
thing.
always have enemies.
Like Spider-Man has to be alone for the rest of his life because of reasons. Where Clark is just like especially at least in comic books and animated things, he's just like, I really want to be with Lois real badly, and I'm trying to, but I'm stuck in a love triangle with myself, and I find that so much more interesting. But I like again, I like the idea of seeing her find out in the movie more than I am her just not knowing, at least that, or her knowing right away, if that makes sense. But that's part of my prediction is that I want that to happen based on the things I've seen in the trailer. These if she's like that at the beginning, if she already knows at the beginning of the movie, no fault. All we're doing now is just her discovering more about Clark as the movie progresses.
Well, let me ask you another prediction. Do you think any like superhero character, or even supervillains, we'll just say like established hero or villain characters that like we haven't already seen in the trailers that you think might be in here? Like the two that I think might pop up, and it might just be like the post credit scene or something to set up the movie coming next year. But Millie Alcock as Supergirl or Jason Momoa as Lobo, I think we'll see one or both of them by the end of the movie. Like it might just be like in the post credit thing, like I was mentioning, but we know that they've shot that entire movie, so there's plenty of footage of like the two of them in costume and makeup as those characters.
Well, it has to be Supergirl. There's no one else that I see not showing up in some way, whether it's the end of the movie, a mid credit scene, or the post credit scene, because Supergirl got cast like immediately, like even before they decided they were going to like fully make that movie. I would love Lobo to show up. I would love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
If Lobo randomly showed up in this movie, I would give it 10 out of 10, like immediately. Just because I love Lobo. Lobo is one of my favorite random DC characters. Not just because he's a very meta character, because every time Lobo meets Superman, the funniest goddamn thing you've ever read in your life is going to start happening because of the fact that Superman and him have the weirdest relationship of any characters.
But it's kind of like Wolverine Deadpool chemistry. It's like oh yeah, those guys they fit together because like they're so different, but
They're so different, but they're the same because they're the last of their race,
Mhm.
like the last male at least of their race, because with Supergirl and stuff, and even Lobo's daughter now exists,
Oh
but
yeah, I guess he's no longer the last. Well, he's the last son of Zarnia.
he's the last like full-blooded Zarnia, like, and same with, or unless you count Phobo, as most of us have called him from now on, because nobody's seen his ass in a long time.
Yeah, that
um
that never happened. A lot of that
I'm
New
just
Fifty
gonna
Two stuff is just like we just act like it never happened.
the funniest thing is he showed up randomly in a Green Lantern comic, and they shoot it away because like somebody found it. Like somebody, like I think Guy Gardner like picks up this thing that he's inside of, and Hal's like, "Not that. We don't give a shit about that." So he just throws it behind. It's really funny, but no, yeah, it's got to be Supergirl. There's no way. There's no way that anyone else shows up. Hero wise, I would find it really funny if Peacemaker showed up.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, like I think it would be very easy for Gunn to get John Cena in this, especially since they were shooting at the same time as Peacemaker season 2. So it's like, oh yeah, you're already working as the character, so let's just get you in front of the camera for some Superman scene. Joel in the live audience is saying Supergirl picking up Crypto is my bet, and I can see that as like the post credit
That's a
scene.
that's a great prediction for one specific reason, and I know you know this specific reason if you've read the story at least that movie is going to be based on, which is that Crypto's a huge part of that story.
Yeah, the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic that we know is going to be a big influence on the movie next year. That originally the movie was called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and then I guess now it's just shortened to Supergirl. But
No, that's a great guess. That's if that happens, I'd be super excited.
and Joey, the chosen one, is also agreeing with Joel in the live audience. So, but I also just want to get a look at Millie Alcock as Supergirl and Momoa as Lobo because they seem like great casting. Like both of those people like look like the character. Like even like Momoa, like even like not in like the face paint or anything. Just I just saw a video clip of him. He was in London at the Ozzy Osbourne farewell concert, and he was getting a circle pit going during the Pantera concert. So it's like yeah, like Momoa, you look like Lobo at this
Yeah,
concert.
yeah. There's that. I don't know if it's true or not. Like, of that story that where Jason Momoa. I don't know if this is true. Where Jason Momoa, when he first got the call from Snyder
Mm-hmm.
about DC,
He
he's
thought it was
like,
Lobo.
yeah, he's like, oh, you guys are calling me to be Lobo, right? And he's like, who? Like, like imagine Snyder being like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, I want you to be Aquaman, and just be like, what? Why? And it's just like,
Yeah.
I think you'd be great. He's like, I guess, like, but sure. So when they rebooted everything, and then the rumor came out that they were just going to be like, you know what, fuck his Aquaman, like not because he hates his Aquaman, but because that man was destined to be Lobo. And come on, guys, like what? Who else would you have picked? I'm still getting arguments with this one friend of mine who's like, I loved him as Aquaman. I'm like, look, I understand that, but that motherfucker was fucking bred to be Lobo.
Yeah. No, I like Momoa. Like I know some people like they criticize him as an actor, but I think he's an adequate actor. Yeah, I think he's good in Game of Thrones. I think he's good in Dune. I enjoy his Aquaman. I like those movies. I think more than the average person. I'm a moderate Aquaman comic book fan. I've read a lot of good like Aquaman comics. I like that character a lot. I think Momoa was fine as Arthur Curry. But yeah, like how the hell do you make him Aquaman and not Lobo? Like come on, he is clearly obviously meant to be Lobo.
The only thing I'll ever say about his Aquaman is it's the closest we'll ever get to live action Brave and the Bold Aquaman.
What should the DCU do with Aquaman? Like how should they like who would you cast if you're James Gunn? Like how do you reboot Aquaman?
I would come full circle because I think it would be funny to get the guy who played Jack Reacher to be Aquaman again. That would just be so funny to me. Just like, screw it, Jack Reacher, you're Aquaman again. Get back in here. You know you want to.
Get back in the fish tank.
You're now bigger than Superman is, so this would be really interesting to watch.
I got another prediction, but before I share it, let me ask: like, do you have another one that you wanna put out there on the record before we see the movie? What's something you predict will be in there?
My prediction is that Superman will fly. No, I'm just kidding. No, my biggest prediction is one that we've had for quite some time. which is when the Kingdom Come influence got announced, not just because of the S itself, which was that the idea that the world is a much more cynical place when he gets there, and sure we're not going to see him when he starts, but that people are still a little more cynical than they are normally when it comes to the other superheroes, and I want him to shine as like a beacon to show everybody, because I know Kingdom Come isn't 100% that, because I Kingdom Come kind of starts with the idea that Superman is the moment Superman retired is the moment everything went to shit in Kingdom Come. So the idea that it's kind of the opposite, where as long as Superman's around, everyone else will be lifted up, not just him, or not even just Lois, but like Green Lantern, Hawk Girl, Mister Terrific, Crypto, that sort of thing. And that's always been my biggest prediction for this movie, because that's the biggest thing you can take away from Kingdom Come outside of that symbol.
Yeah, I forgot that we talked about that so much in an earlier show, but I'm glad you reminded me because that is what seems to be a theme in some of the marketing material we've looked at. But the idea that the world is in this dark cynical mind space, and then having this bright hopeful hero emerge like Superman helps pull people out of that, and kind of like a reverse Kingdom Come, where Kingdom Come set towards the end of his career, and things shifted and got a lot darker, and then he kind of has to be the beacon then at like the end of his career. Here it'll be at the beginning when he's on, I guess, year 3 of being Superman. But that also reflects kind of our real life experiences, like in the 90s when Mark Wade and Alex Ross did Kingdom Come. They were telling a story that was very true to that reality at the time, where things were getting darker in the 90s. You had a lot of these you had like the rise of Image Comics, and guys like Spawn, and these darker characters show. You had like Superman being killed by Doomsday in the comics. You had like Batman getting his back broken, and it was kind of a darker time where it was like, yeah, like the good guys who always do the right thing, like they're not necessarily going to win, and if anything, it'll be entertaining just to watch other people beat the shit out of those heroes and stuff like that.
It
And
was the rise of the anti-hero.
yeah,
Was the 90s. The 90s is, as much as we joke it being the extreme years, was very true for a lot of that stuff. Even like late 80s was really around that point, where, because the Punisher was kind of like a side character for a long time until
mm-hmm,
about that time frame, where then all of a sudden, the
mm-hmm.
Punisher was fucking everywhere. Same with Wolverine. Deadpool sort of came around the same time. Even Lobo existence is around that time too.
So I think now in 2025, after everything that we've gone through in the last 30 years, after like the 21st century, and like 9/11 and the Bush years, and unpopular wars overseas, and just kind of like the way things have gotten so bad with like multiple financial crises that keep occurring, with multiple we were just talking about, like a climate disaster getting worse and worse. It just like we live in such a cruel world, and so much of that is being exposed in recent years, of just like how nasty our reality and our society is currently. It's like, what, we need to come out of this dark, cynical, just just mean spirited culture, and get back to hope and kindness, and having a character who's, like Christopher Reeve said, like he wanted Superman to be a friend, like he was talking about in the 70s, but he was saying like, yeah, like in these modern times, people like, we don't trust each other like we used to, and we need like a stranger who can be trustworthy, who shows up and he's like, I'm here to help, I'm here to be a friend. We really need that story being told. And so, yeah, like having Superman arrive and begin his career in this darker, cynical world, and kind of do like the Kingdom Come thing, and be like, no, like all of y'all, like look here, like this is the right way to go about things. It seems like a really appropriate way to reintroduce the character.
100%. We've now needed, and I don't mean when I sound this, it makes it sound like Superman hasn't existed in a long time. No, we need Superman now more than ever. And I don't mean that to say that like, you know, Man of Steel and those things didn't exist. But the problem was all those stories were told through such a cynical lens when Man of Steel came out. Because that was one of the things we said about Man of Steel is that, and something that Snyder said once, which is Snyder once said, "What would Superman be like if he existed in real life?" Was what he wanted to do as the idea, and he wanted Superman to be like he wanted his version of Superman to be like, what if he landed in America during that time frame? And it's just too cynical. The world's too cynical. Superman feels cynical in it because of the way Snyder's lens views his version of hope. Snyder's version of hope is so much darker than another person's version of hope, and that's a weird thing to think about because, like you said, like it's such a cynical viewpoint, and that so much of that cynical injustice added more on top of that cynicism to the idea that like, well, Superman could just lose his mind at any minute just because of like he had one bad day. It's like no, the point of the one bad day thing, even in Killing Joke, is that it's wrong. The whole point of the whole point of all that stuff is that it's wrong. But people keep viewing Superman in this weird lens. Like I saw a post recently where somebody made another. It's one of those another Snyder ones where it's just like I want my Superman back. The guy had said like it's like oh Superman's not going to defeat Dark Side and all these things with kindness and teaching each other like love and stuff. It's like it does it by punching things, and when he shows up, everybody's scared, and that's who my Superman is. I'm like, you've just described Homelander. That's what you've described. Like that's not Superman. Like, and that's the thing. We need people to find again. We need the general public to really look at Superman again in a normal light. Because as much as I love my adventures with Superman, you know, the general public doesn't pay attention to animation the same way we do. They didn't even pay attention to the CW Superman Lois the same way we did. The general public pays more attention to a cinematic movie. And if this is the version of Superman we get, I think we're going to be just fine. Oh, you muted.
Sorry. But I also think it will end the movie in an interesting place if they are telling like this type of story of Superman kind of like showing up on the hero scene and having big ramifications that kind of change the superhuman community in this DCU. You know, it looks like we're getting a DC universe where there have been superpowered people for decades and decades, and that's just part of life in this world. But it also looks like a lot of these superheroes. You know, you have like the Lord Tech sponsorship of the Justice Gang or whatever they're doing there. But it looks like yeah, these heroes are going to be working for Lord or Luthor. They're maybe like two different camps. You have like Metamorpho and the engineer palling around with Lex. It looks like in the trailer. So it and you know Lex building mech suits and having his own like looks like a private army, but like things that like he's built up with his company. And you can make that as kind of a commentary on like, oh yeah, we have all these like big colorful characters now, but they're all part of some corporate agenda. You have like Spider-Man is this big like Disney slash Sony product that they have to make like so much merchandise of every year and stuff like that, and it can really muddle the message of what these heroes are meant to stand for. And if you have like if you make this movie a story about like, oh, Superman's not gonna partner up with one of these corporate sponsorships or something, like he's going to be an individual solo operator who's just out there just trying to do good to help people, and maybe like that inspires other heroes to kind of branch out and take on the same mission. And it would, you know, you kind of end the movie at a really neat place to launch all these other superhero stories. uh, like one thing I think that they might follow up this movie with, you know, like Gunn has talked about how like, oh yeah, like I'm working on something else, and I'll probably direct it. It's going to be like the next movie after this one. I wouldn't exactly call it a Superman sequel. And, you know, some people are thinking like, oh, are they going to do a Batman and Superman, like a world's finest movie, which very similarly, you know, Zack Snyder's sequel to Man of Steel was Batman v Superman. And that was arguably a bad way to proceed after that movie. But I actually think that, like, what they might be doing next is a Justice League International. That seems like the perfect type of movie for Gunn to write and direct. He loves like those big, colorful ensemble cast. There's a lot of humor with characters. Like we're already getting in this movie, like with like Guy Gardner. Like I would love to see like some of those like Guy Gardner and Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, see, or get Martian Manhunter in there, and like if you go read the old JLI comics, it's like, oh, that is so easy to adapt that to like a James Gunn movie. So
Well, not only that, it's just so it's untapped. It's untapped potential. Like the Justice League has been done in many different ways, in many different iterations, whether it be cartoons, whether it be the movies that got made recently, or even the animated movies. But the Justice League International it feels like a team that's just not really been used, even in the adaptations of stories where they're supposed to be in there.
but like, what would you do with Justice League after the failure of the 2017 movie? Like, it kind of seems like a way to respond to that. Would to do like what the comics did? Like, they weren't really sure what to do with Justice League after Crisis on Infinite Earths, so they're like, you know what? Let's just like do like this comedy approach to it.
My my thoughts are always this is actually what Bruce Timm did with it, at least in the first thing, which is make it a story where because this is the issue Justice League happened with in Snyder's, which is that you don't need the Justice League because Snyder's Superman was so stupidly OP that if he was alive the entire time, that story never would have happened. Type of thing. Like he would have showed up, Steppenwolf would have showed up and he would have flicked him and Steppenwolf would have died. The end. Type of thing. Like that's like it makes sense why Steppenwolf would attack right after Superman died because Superman sneezes at him and he fucking turns into atoms type of thing. Whereas what I liked about Justice League and the cartoon is that it does a really good job of showing that when you're like this is a job for Superman, not really because he's not doing very well either. Like he shows up and starts like fighting these Martians and stuff, but it goes bad for him pretty quickly type of thing. Like you need something that's so big, and I don't mean like, and I know Apocalypse is a big thing, don't get me wrong, but you need to start off with like an alien invasion that works, where that everyone needs to be involved, where Superman can't be everywhere at once, or even when Superman is doing well, that he still like being held back enough that it's obvious he's not going to win by himself. Like, you need something like that. You need a story the way Avengers was, the way the first Avengers was, where it's just like, yeah, sure, Iron Man's really good at what he does. Sure, Thor's really good at what he does, but the two of them, even together by themselves, wouldn't have been able to stop the Chitauri invasion type of thing. Like you need a reason for there to be a team. The team doesn't need to exist because the one guy who could do it all by himself died. Like that's not a good reason to have a team. Like if anything, that's just like flailing and hoping for the best. So you need a team where when Superman's alive, that everybody meshes exactly the way they're supposed to, like the way Grant Morrison stuff was, the way the Bruce Timm universe or the Timmverse was in the DC animated universe. Like we need a team that is both, and then like you said, some comedy ones too. There could be some comedy stories that happen in the middle of that stuff, like them helping out fighting, the Joker, the prankster, and the what is his name, Trickmaster. What is his name? The Flash one.
The trickster, right?
Is it the Trickster?
Yeah.
But yeah, like have all three of them team up and make a Justice League story out of that. Like that would be fun. Like you can do both, and the problem is that like nobody's willing to do both with the Justice League. Like not every story needs to be a world ending. That's the problem the Avengers comics have right now.
Yeah.
Is every story in Avengers comics is a world ending story. There's no like mid points anymore.
That's kind of the hard thing with having like the big Avengers team or the big Justice League team, is like what could possibly require all of these powerful characters together. It normally does seem to be an alien invasion of some kind, but if they want to change it up a little bit, they've talked a lot about New Frontier being an influence on this new universe. Like they could bring in the Center, the villain from New Frontier, which was kind of like an internal threat, like from within Earth, and like all the Dinosaur Island stuff.
That'd be a great idea. Like there's so many Justice League stories that haven't been mined for things and adaptations, and if anybody is willing to do some weird shit, it's James Gunn. Especially like even if he's not the one who makes it, I can see him being like, this fits perfectly in my universe.
But I don't know what else like if this movie is going to set up something in addition to I assume eventually they'll want to make a Superman sequel to this. Like I really hope so. Like it's been a long time since we've had a Superman movie that got a direct sequel as another Superman movie. But I know at one point, like they talked about doing an Authority movie, and then they were talking about like, oh, we might actually do that in animation, and then they kind of just shut up about it. But I'm also wondering like, oh, would they want to do like a Superman versus the Authority type story? Like I don't think it would be like the Grant Morrison comic from a few years ago, but maybe something
the Superman and the Authority.
Yeah,
that would be interesting. Yeah, doing a Superman and the Authority comic instead, or not comic but movie instead. Because the Authority was one of the first things he mentioned. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do an Authority movie," and everyone's like, "Really?" Like, because like, how do you do that movie? Basically, like, and I don't mean that as like as the Authority is like unfilmable. I mean it so much as the Authority is NC-17 as fuck when it comes to the things that happens in that universe or in that.
But as an animated show, if they did that as an animated show on Max, they could do whatever the hell they wanted, you know?
That's true, and that's the reason why it would make more sense in animation. But the problem is, or not the problem, but the thing that James Gunn has been very adamant about is that everything that happens in both the animation and the movies is all part of one giant thing, which is the reason why Rick Flag Sr. is in both of them, and it's the same actor, because that was the other thing he said. He's like, everybody I cast in both things, whether it's animation or movies, is going to play them in both of them, which he's been very adamant about that, and so far he's been true to his word with that, and if he does that Authority thing, well, how does that fit? Like, will we see, Midnighter meet Batman? Will we see, what was it? Was it Apollo? What was his name? The Superman analog
Apollo.
As well. It was Apollo, yeah.
Apollo's the Superman, Midnighter's the Batman.
Yeah, will we see the two of them meet Superman and Batman? Will they kiss in front of Superman and Batman to make it awkward?
I don't know about you, but like I have never read an Authority comic. My introduction to them was in Countdown, in the weekly Countdown series, Countdown to Infinite Crisis, way back like 18 years ago. But it was when I think it was Jason Todd and Donna Troy are like universe hopping. They're going to all these different universes in the multiverse. And they go to the Wildstorm universe, and it's like, oh, here's the Batman of this universe. Here's the Superman of this universe. Apparently they kill people, and then like, oh, they're making out now. It turns out they're married. Like, what? It was just like shock after shock after shock. So imagine like a mainstream audience like getting that same type of reactions to these characters.
Exactly. I'm friends with somebody who read all of it. All of the Authority, and every time he explains anything about the Authority, it sounds like he's making something up. It sounds like the most batshit thing I've ever heard in my life. Part of the continuity of the Authority is an Aliens crossover. Is that there's a point in time where like a bunch of the teammates die, and it continues from there, and it's because they all died from a fucking xenomorph.
So they kept those events in
it's part of its actual
canon.
Continuity.
Wow,
yeah, its actual continuity is a xenomorph showed up and murdered a bunch of them, and it kept going after that, which is insane. It's one of the most insane things I've ever heard in my life. It's like if you read Superman versus Aliens #2, the one with Darkseid and the xenomorphs, and somehow that was still part of the continuity. You'd be like, oh, all the new gods are dead because they all became xenomorphs. It's like, what? What, and then the rest of the story was the same. You'd be very confused very quickly.
Oh. Well, do you have any other predictions you want to get on the record before we sign off?
I have one. This is going to sound like a massive spoiler, only because if it happens, I'll be in love with this movie. And people have had this theory, and if you guys don't want to hear what I'm going to say, just turn this off now. I'm hoping that Ultraman turns out to be Bizarro.
That's kind of what I have my fingers crossed for. I've seen like the crazy theories. A lot of people want it to be Henry Cavill. Like
I would lose my goddamn mind in the theater if that happened.
They're not gonna do that. But
they should. You hear me, James Gunn? You should do it just to piss everyone off. It'd be really funny.
But that reveal Mike, to have like that Ultraman mask like come off and have it be David Cornswett's face, I think that would be perfect for the type of story like I want them to tell about like look, like Lex is trying to create like a corporate copy of you Superman. Like he's trying to create like he can't own you. He's gonna make a copy of you that he can own. And that just to show that kind of like corporate capitalist mentality, and then have Superman have to like fight against that and defeat that. I think
That's
that would
why the whole
actually
thing would
work
work
really well. Yeah.
exactly. I think it would be such a great use of Bizarro, and I feel like we don't get enough live action Bizarro. Sure, he showed up in Smallville, but he was very weird. He wasn't really Bizarro all that much in that. He was great in Superman and Lois, but he wasn't really Bizarro for too long, unfortunately. And then in the only other time I know that Bizarro, like an actual Bizarro, has shown up is the Superboy television show, which he was great in. And not counting the cartoons, because he's great, and he's great every time he shows up in a cartoon. So we need more live action Bizarros, and that's what. And I want a cinematic Bizarro.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing we've never had. We've never had a
Yeah.
cinematic Bizarro.
Yeah, animation has done it, live action TV has done it, but big screen yet to do it. But yeah, and I think
Don't want Metallo though.
well, I think either one of those is really easy to adapt. But yeah, like a lot of superheroes, they have like that guy who's like it's like the Suicide Squad meme of like, oh, he does all the same things I do. But like Spider-Man has Venom, Green Lantern has Sinestro, Superman has Bizarro, and
I want it to be Bizarro because you just reminded me of the meme, because I want the meme to be really funny, which is he's like, he does everything I do, but then he just says, but worse.
yeah, exactly. If it is Bizarro in the movie, we'll have to try to create that meme before anyone else does. But yeah, I like that. And I think that's all the predictions I wanted to get out there. So I'm kind of I'm trying to kind of avoid any new information on the movie. I stopped watching clips. The last thing I saw was I didn't even watch the entire thing. It was like a little bit of the clip of Superman in Lex's office, and they're yelling about.
I didn't even watch the clip. I know what happens in the clip, but I never saw the clip. Not because like I wanted to because of the podcast, but then I was like, you know what? I'm watching this movie in like not very long from now, and I want to not get completely spoiled on it. Yeah. And I'll be very excited to hopefully not get spoiled by the whole thing. So
I don't click on any TV spots or anything. It's like I know enough. I'm just ready. I'm ready to go in tomorrow and see this thing, and I'm pretty fucking excited for it.
All my friends who are critics just posted their images of being at the theater while we were recording this, so they're all watching that movie right now. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for them, but I might just not look at Facebook for like 24 hours.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk Superman with me.
Of course. I made sure to bring my Clark. I've been fucking with him on and off throughout the stream. But people didn't see me doing that. Also made sure I had my mug. It's my Superman mug. I love this thing. Yeah, I've been all Superman decked. I'm all Superman out. Or not out. I'm all Superman upped for tomorrow. So I'm very excited.
And we'll be back next week.
I'm definitely going to message you once I get out of that movie, because I know full well you're going to too.
Yeah, so I'm seeing it 3 times this week. I'm seeing it Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So I hope I like it, but I'll be very well informed to talk about it in more detail next time with you. So
at the moment, I'm going to watch it at least twice so far. I'm going to watch it tomorrow, and then I have my girlfriend's going to be part of a musical for a bit, so I won't be able to watch it with her at least again until the 20th. But I might try watching it by myself somewhere in the middle of that. So it all depends on when I have time.
You know what we need to do after we give our reactions? But we need to do a show with our girlfriends talking about it, since they've just both had a Superman movie crash course. I would be curious to hear what.
That's actually one of the things I told her. Not that part, but the part where I was like, I just realized I've accidentally given you a Superman crash course and me rewatching a bunch of random shit. And the only thing I haven't done to her is force her to watch both of my other favorite things, which is Lois and Clark and Smallville. But it's because I don't have time.
Yeah, those are big commitments.
Those are huge commitments. And Lois and Clark would be shorter, but not by a lot, all things considered. But yeah, that's Yeah, I'm very curious because she's always been a big Batman fan. That's the thing. My girlfriend's always been a huge Batman fan. So this is the most she's ever been exposed to Superman.
Yeah,
So
and Taylor was never really cared for Superman either. But like she's seen so much. Like I was like, damn, like you know so much about this guy at this point. Like you have like some legit good opinions. And she said some things about some of these movies like I had never thought of. And I was like, you know, now that you bring that up, that's a really good point. So
that's the fun thing about showing it. I'm using quoting fingers an outsider, one of your favorite things to hear them have because I my girlfriend had like her own opinion about Man of Steel that I didn't think about, but I also had one that she never thought about either. So it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating to watch stuff with your partner who's never seen something to see what I showed her the Truman Show without her knowing what the Truman Show was about. That was fascinating. So it's great to do that. If you guys get a chance, I highly recommend showing your friends or your girlfriend or your partner or whatever something they've never seen before and not explaining anything about it to them.
yeah, I mean, I showed her all of the Burton Schumacher Batman movies, and she had like no idea who was going to be playing the villains. And like when we got to the fourth movie, she was like, "Wait a minute, is it going to be like Will Smith as Scarecrow now?" I was like, "No, but if they made a fifth one, that's probably what would have happened." Like you understand how they were casting these.
Yeah, I forgot who was supposed to be Scarecrow. It was Jeff Goldblum, remember?
Oh, I also heard Coolio was considered at one point. So, but
I
yeah, I
remember,
could see either
yeah,
of them.
I heard it was supposed to be Jeff Goldblum. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, though, based on that. And if you guys are playing with your phones, there's also a new DC game on the Android, and I've gotten my Man of Steel. So you guys go ahead and it's called DC Worlds Collide. It's a lot of fun so far, but
Which
if it's not your thing,
you were playing all day so that you could unlock Superman on
this
there.
took me all day. I started at like noon because I was in the middle of work when it installed on my phone, and I was fucking with it until half an hour before we started, and I unlocked Superman 20 minutes before that.
Well timed. But I assume we're good to go for next week on Monday. We'll have our reactions to finally seeing the film.
Yes, we are. We should be good to go, and you guys should all be good to go to watch this movie. Watch it
Yeah.
Thursday. Watch it as soon as you guys can. I know for most people they're not watching the way we are because we're doing the Amazon screening. Comes out on Thursday early usually because most screenings have it probably starting at 7 or at those times. Some of them usually have like 4 o'clock showings now the day
Yeah.
before.
No, this one
Very
has,
strange.
I think there's like showings at like 3:30, like way early Thursday. So
Yeah. So yeah, you guys have. I need this to beat Man of Steel's opening, just because I think it would be funny.
yeah, box office predictions. It needs to make 117 million to outdo Man of Steel. So
Is that how much? How much did Man of Steel make?
I think it was 117 domestic. So and
Look it up.
and so I would love for this to at least do that, or you know, I would absolutely love if it could do like 160, 170, like outdo BVS would really make my day. But I don't.
It was 125. Its opening weekend,
125. Okay,
which is
so,
pretty amazing. But I think it would be really funny if we got to like 130, because that's the max prediction that I've heard is 130. The lowest I've heard is like 110, which is still really good.
But yeah. If it's anywhere around any of that, then the movie will be off to a great start. So
It's got a really good chance.
I think like overall, I guess just to give like a worldwide box office prediction, I think it'll do like comparable to the Batman. I don't know if it'll clear a billion, but I think it'll clear 700 million. That's my prediction.
And I have no issues with that. A lot of people I know are going to be like, it failed. It's like, no, nowadays you don't really need it to make that.
Yeah.
We don't need it to always be a billion. And James Gunn said the same thing. He's like, look, if it makes 700, 800 million dollars, that's a hell of a success based on what his budget is at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. We really will. And just again, Absolute Superman's next issue comes out this week as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh yeah, and the first trade is out in August, so we should cover that first story arc in August.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
But everyone else, you have your homework assignment. Go see Superman, and then come back. We'll be live Monday giving our reactions to it. So join us in the chat and tell us your thoughts. And until next time, as always, keep it super, y'all.